posted $2.9 billion profit for the fiscal year, marking a 22% drop from its earlier $3.7 billion profit forecast. Nissan said the drop resulted from costs in the U.S. and falling sales due to corporate issues. Ghosn was arrested in November and is facing charges of underreporting his income and breach of trust.
Betting correspondent Jeremy Huff. New Jersey's governor says his state could be the top sports betting market in the country as soon as next year. Speaking at the Betting on Sports America conference, Democrat Phil Murphy predicted New Jersey's fast-growing sports betting market could surpass that of Nevada by next year. In the 10 months that New Jersey has allowed legal sports betting, gamblers have wagered more than $2.3 billion. More of these stories can be found at townhall.com.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters media.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you.
Hello and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Reno's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your co-host, Brendan Trainor, and I have Leland Faegre here as our co-host.
I feel welcome.
Okay. And we have quite a bit to talk about today, as usual, and this very warm spring day.
Isn't it, though?
Yes.
Wow. About mid-80s tomorrow, I think, is the forecast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get started. I think one of the first things I wanted to talk about was foreign affairs because we should have a guest in studio coming up shortly, Juanita Cox, to talk about local politics with the Washoe County Central Committee election. Mm-hmm. And so I just as I said last week, the Mueller report is poorly written in the fact that it assumes facts not in evidence against Russia. And boy, was I shocked last night. And I feel like saying, et tu, Judge? When I was watching Kennedy, Judge Napolitano was on, and he started off the show with a rant against Russia. And he actually seems to believe that Russia did all the evil things that Mueller put in his report, which are unverified.
So you're saying that 18 Clintonados on the Mueller team came up with a report that wasn't accurate?
Yeah,
is that what you're trying to tell us?
Yes, I think so. I hate to admit it, but I think so. And and the irony is that he had William Binney on the show later in the segment, who is the former chief. He wasn't director, but he was high up in the NSA, the National Security Agency. And Binney is the one that has proven, along with others like Ray McGovern in the Veteran Intelligence Agency's whistleblower group, that has demonstrated that Russia did not hack into the DNC computers. They did it forensically. They examined the time that it took to download the files, and they concluded that it could not have been a hack from a foreign country. It had to have been a download onto because it happened so quickly, it had to be a download into a DVD or a flash drive.
Well, let's get Julian Assange on the phone and find out.
Yes. Well, as we reported last week, Assange tried to come to America and express these views, and Comey nixed that in January of 2017 when Trump was taking office. He did not let Assange come in under a grant of immunity to explain exactly what happened. And Binney actually brought his evidence to Secretary of State Pompeo, and Pompeo listened to him and said he would look into it. And so far we haven't heard that he's actually done anything to look into it.
No.
So the deep state narrative goes on. And when they talk about global warming and how global warming causes all these things that it couldn't possibly cause, I have an incomplete list of sinister things Russia's been accused of by the finest minds of Western media and political life.
This will be good.
Yeah.
Pull up a chair, folks.
Russia has been accused of forcing Donald Trump to hire Rex Tillerson, then forcing Trump to fire Rex Tillerson, forcing Trump to give concessions to North Korea, meddling in the 2018 Italian elections, winning the 2018 elections, hacking the 2017 French elections. Oh, that's twice. Russia's been blamed for Brexit. It's been blamed for the Gilets jaunes. It's been accused of helping the far-right party in the 2017 German elections.
How long is this list?
Oh, this list goes on and on and on. I mean, it's...
Because we have 3 minutes until the break.
I know.
Okay, all right, just so you know.
And, of course, other things like dividing America, using the vaccine debate to sow discord, sowing discord in the 2018 elections. We hear that all the time. Targeting African Americans to suppress the 2018 election turnout, amplifying existing divisions in American society, hacking the mindset of the American people.
No, now you've gone too far.
Yes. Tricking Americans into thinking Jesus hates Hillary Clinton.
Well, they might be right about that one.
Yeah. Supporting Bernie Sanders, tricking Americans into voting Bernie Sanders, turning Jill Stein into a Russian agent, influencing the Standing Rock movement, promoting sex toys on Instagram to sow discord in the U.S., inflaming race wars, infiltrating America's Christian conservative homeschooling movement.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Arming the Taliban, employing U.S. Senator Rand Paul, interfering in the Catalan referendum, planning to interfere in Israel's elections.
I was going to go to Israel. I thought that might be on there, yeah.
Funding The Intercept, and these are just a few of the many things that Putler, that's what a lot of people call him, Putler.
Putler.
Yes. A combination of Putler and Hitler.
Well, you're going to give our listening audience the suggestion that we do comedy here at least in the first segment of the show, and it was funny.
Yes,
it was definitely funny.
It is.
Politics can be fun.
Yes,
and funny.
Yeah, if you read the right sources. I mean, if you read the New York Times, then it can be funny when they're not trying to be funny. But if you read the right sources, it can be very funny. And so we see both the left and the right, and Jared Kushner got into it and said that what happened to Donald Trump in the last 2 years was far worse than a couple of Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm. Which cost them
$100,000.
$160,000 or something.
Yeah. But that's inflated to millions because the Internet Research Agency was a commercial clickbait operation. It was not staffed by Russian spies. It was staffed by Russian graduate students.
Mueller was almost lucky that they were out there, don't you think?
Yes, he is.
That's the only hint of legitimacy about the 2-year investigation.
Exactly.
You know, that's all. And they're never going to show up.
Right. Yeah, so, the beat goes on. America has to find an enemy to hate, and if it doesn't find an enemy to hate, it loses its...
one.
Yes, it will create one. And it loses its meaning for existence. We must preserve the rules-based international order, and we'll be
We're coming up on a break so we can introduce Juanita Cox
All right.
after the commercial break.
Destination Midtown. Experience the difference. Reno's premier shopping extravaganza. Everything.
Hi, everybody. This is Sharon Oran with Coffee with Sharon. Remember, Thursday, 5 p.m. I'll be here. Will you?
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. This is your co-host, Brendan Trainor, along with Leland Faegre. And we have a special guest in the studio today, Juanita Cox. And she has been an activist in the freedom movement here in Northern Nevada for many years. She was my floor director and #1 camera person on the cable show we had for many years.
What was the name of that cable show?
With Liberty and Justice for All.
Great name.
And Juanita,
where'd you get that name, by the way? It's damn good.
Yeah. And
has a ring to it.
It does.
All right, Juanita, did you want to start to tell us why you're here today?
2 points. One is Washoe County Republican Central Committee is having their election. And there is a challenger to the regime right now, a new slate. I'm quite excited about former Assemblywoman Jill Dixon is challenging the current chairman of Washoe, and then there's a couple other ladies that I'm real excited about. Melissa Clement, who has been an activist, I think, since she was a child. I think I was
You
either
said that about
opposing.
Brendan.
Yeah, we've been around for a few years. Yeah, our gray hair. So Melissa has been an activist, a lobbyist. She currently just put a quick message on Facebook that the bill that was to die, the death bill, it died. And so
The death bill died?
You mean euthanasia?
Yeah.
Okay.
The death bill.
Well, we
died.
don't like those euthanasia, those youth.
No, we don't.
But anyway, so that, whether you liked it or not, anyway, it's dead. And let's see, that's Melissa. And then there's a new gal. Melissa's running for secretary, actually. And a new gal, Amanda,
Amanda
name is,
Flocini?
Yes, thank you. I can never say that. Anyway, Amanda is just this exuberant, she's a young woman. She's 32, graduated out of UNR on, I believe, political science and something about foreign affairs. And she's just so exciting. And wants to bring youth in. Geez, that would be a
Well,
change.
let's get her on. Let's get them on the show. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, she's just dynamic. And the last lady I had never met before, Sandra, and that you'll have to say her name. But she's the only one running for the treasurer, and her credentials are phenomenal. She's a forensic financial expert, teaches, I believe, at Truckee Meadows and maybe UNR. She teaches forensic investigation or some kind of thing like that. So what a slate they've got, a new slate. So
is there any competition that's even worth discussing here? I mean,
well,
obviously
yes.
you are suggesting that these are the best people for those positions.
I am. But there's others certainly, and there's the old slate. Mm-hmm. But I'm upset being at the state party and knowing a lot of the problems that have been happening between the state and the national and Washoe County. Washoe County should have just fulfilled all of their Republican candidates, and it didn't happen. There were volunteers that were told to stand down, and that is not good in the last couple of weeks.
Were they intimidated?
Oh, yes. So that's my spiel for Washoe, and its election is tomorrow night, Thursday night at
Not sure.
the Elks Club. Yeah, and I believe that starts at 6, but anyway.
And for our listeners, the Central Committees are very important in the context of the electoral process. This is how agendas can develop, and very importantly, at the grassroots level. So it will be well worth a turnout if you are in the Washoe County area.
And especially this slate, the slate that I just spoke of, is pro-Trump, and I believe the incumbents, they're not working on the Trump.
They're not on the Trump train?
They're not on the Trump train, never have been.
Well, they've got to go then.
Anyway, this is my feeling, and I'm from another county, but just observing the discord in Washoe, where a number of our rural counties come in and help Washoe because it's the number one important county.
Outside of Clark County.
Well, it's the number one in the United States because it's the number one county, number one state that's, what do you call it?
Purple or?
Purple or
Okay.
whatever it is.
In that context,
It's-
yeah.
that's what it is. So anyway, it's very important to at least certainly the rurals and the state, and we wanna make sure that Washoe does a little better and helps our state overcome the great blue from the south.
Yep. In Clark County. Yeah.
Yes, and Jill Dickman has been when she was in the legislature, she always graded very high, like in the top 3 legislatures for economic freedom, graded by the Nevada Policy Research Institute. And she's a good person, and she's been associated with the Ron Paul movement. And so we need some, we need this new blood. I'm excited to hear that there are some young people in getting involved that you agree are good people.
Yes, I'm really excited. I've never seen such a qualified slate ever, particularly for the Washoe County.
County.
That's saying something.
So I'm just thrilled. There are other quality people, but I think this slate will really work together and with their energy. That's the thing. You have to have lots of energy to get other people motivated, and I think that they can and will and have. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I got a letter from Jill. It was on a handwritten envelope, so I read it because it wasn't boilerplate. And she says that she's going to work hard to not only to make the party responsive to the Donald Trump campaign, but also to help the down ballot people. And that's what you need. You need more help from the Republican Party for good people.
Right, and the thing is, she's been a candidate. She's been an elected official. She knows she can help other candidates. And there were some that I certainly backed and somehow made it without the local party's help. But when you bring your campaign materials, which are costly, and you put them at the Republican Party, and they don't get opened, they don't get distributed, they don't get stuffed into the bags.
Oh, that's common.
That is very
that's common
sad.
at the central committee level. You know, the candidates that they don't prefer, they ostracize in that way.
Well, this particular...
Oh, yeah, those materials, they're in the back somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This particular candidate was your Washoe County Assessor, Mike Clark. And so that really hurt. He nearly did not make it, which there's no excuse.
No excuse.
He was wonderful.
Yeah. That's how they operate.
All right. And so we'd ask everyone to go and support Jill at the Washoe County Central Committee meeting tomorrow. And then you, after the show, you're going down to the legislature, and there's an important vote this afternoon regarding our constitutional electoral college, isn't it? That correct?
Right. It's Assembly Bill 186. It's the national popular vote. What this does is take away our electoral votes, and I was fortunate to be one of the 6 that was chosen, quite a process to be chosen, and an honor to be chosen as an elector. So
Yeah, very much so.
I have testified against it in the Assembly. I will be testifying again today at 4 o'clock. And let's see if I can find
Is it in the Senate now?
It is in the Senate
Yeah, because they
now.
had to vote all the bills out.
I believe it was 23 to 17. There was a couple of Democrat votes as well against it in the Assembly.
A couple of Democrats vote against it?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
So,
But it's a fait accompli, isn't it? I mean, we've got already 12 or 13 states that have ratified similar measures.
yes, but we have to have a total. Nothing takes place until they reach a, let's see, what is it, 270
Oh, yeah, exactly.
electoral votes.
Yeah, it won't.
Or,
Yeah, and then it'll probably end up in the Supreme Court because
Oh,
I
yes,
can't.
it
I
will.
can't see it not being challenged. So,
right.
yeah.
I believe it's.
But it's
definitely
just dangerous
unconstitutional.
that there's even legitimate consideration at the grassroots level of such a thing. I mean, the fact that we're even fighting this battle is really the problem.
It's nationwide.
Yes, it is.
They've chosen this to attack our constitutional way of elections. What this does is all the quote flyover
counties don't matter.
Counties and states, we will not matter. As I testified in the assembly, what this will do is, if it goes through, it would give our electoral votes 6 whatever, but it's important. And
We're up against a break here as well.
I'll tell you more about it later.
After the break? Yeah, we want to hear it because, this really is a dangerous trend in the country, and it will literally destroy us if the Electoral College is not sustained going forward. So we'll see you on the other side of the break.
Hi there, Roy Marshall here to welcome you to our new world-famous Marshall Mint at the Reno Town Mall. You'll find gold and silver bars, the V&T Railroad, Wild Mustangs, and Angels of the Day medallions, one-of-a-kind estate jewelry, Morgan dollars, fashion golden quartz jewelry. See the free museum with precious stones and crystals from all over the world. The Marshall Mint, now open in Reno.
Hey, lady! What's for lunch today? Out to lunch. Mondays at noon. 1180 KCKQ, a production of America Matters Media.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, my co-host, Leland Faegre, and special guest, Juanita Cox. Before we get back to the show, we would like to give a shout-out to our main sponsor, Reno Computer Services. They are Reno's premier internet or IT provider for computer repair, malware removal, data recovery, and they also are involved with prevention of bad things that can happen to your computer. You can reach them at 775-737-4400 or look on the web at www.renocomputerservices.com. And so we were talking again about this dangerous vote that's coming up in the Senate regarding the popular vote, which is being pushed by the Democrats because flyover country has a little too much power. The Rust Belt and the other sections of the country that have a different worldview from the mega states and the mega cities of New York, Los Angeles, Chicago.
Yeah, Topeka, Kansas doesn't matter.
Yes, of course not. Yeah. Wichita, who cares about that? Yeah. Omaha, yeah. So, Juanita, you were going to say a little bit more from your point of view.
Well, as I testified in the assembly against the bill, opposing the bill, I told them that it takes, so we have give our electoral votes to most likely California, New York, and Texas, and maybe one northern state, but it pretty much is California and New York. And so had we done this in 2018, the votes for Nevada basically would be wasted because the gerrymandering, the voting fraud that is going on all over the country, but it especially was exposed by Judicial Watch in January in a court case there that they won, that there was over 1.5 million illegal voters in LA County alone. Now, that is the amount of votes, not necessarily that would all of them have voted for Hillary, but that is your national popular vote. That was the amount of votes that was compromised. And they appear to be allowing a whole lot of illegal aliens, which is a proper term in the United States federal code, I've been reprimanded for that terrible language, but it happens to be the proper language of usage today.
Right, but it isn't just illegal aliens. I'm registered in Los Angeles County to vote. To this day, I haven't lived there in 11 years. Well, I still get the sample ballot every year.
Your vote will be cleaned up.
Completely broken down. Yeah, when?
I hope soon.
They're not interested in cleaning it up. They want every single one of those people to be potential voters.
Absolutely, and probably you have voted, whether you knew it or not. I think my dead dad and mom are still voting in Nevada, but anyway, there's a lot of dead, a lot of people that have moved, just a lot of problems in these, especially in these larger states. And
big cities.
It took, what, almost 2 years for the court process of Judicial Watch to get through that and to find out there were that many, and there are more. That was just one county in California. Right. A big one, though.
And that was through the Freedom of Information Act that they got all that, or how did they successfully?
Right, through private donations, so please help them.
Yeah.
I'm one of their members. And Judicial Watch, and he's been very successful to bringing forward a lot of discrepancies in our laws.
Oh, yeah. I mean, where would we be without Judicial Watch?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And there are other examples. I've come across an economist that did a regression analysis of the votes, and he also believes that the Democrats stuffed the votes in the bigger cities, stuffed the ballot box in various ways, but because of the Electoral College, it didn't have that much effect for them. They won the popular vote, but they were still halted from winning the electoral votes.
Exactly. But, I mean, there are, remember 1960, the Kennedy Nixon. And those Cook County votes came in the wee hours of the morning, 2 in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of those larger states or counties, or they have problems because some of them had more votes than there were even voters. And silly me.
Yeah, I remember that. Even in the 2016 election. There were examples of that, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Hard to imagine votes, illegal voting in Cook County.
I know it boggles the mind that a democratically run big city would ever engage in any kind of tactic like that.
It boggles the mind.
But so voting is a real problem now. Why would I say the electoral constitutional vote is important? What do you think? It allows everybody to be counted. Now, you hear the opposite in testimony that, oh no, the national popular vote would be good. But is it? No, because we would be trusting these large states with our few votes, which is all of the pie. The whole pie would go into these states that have not monitored the voting system like perhaps a smaller state and us.
Yeah, they're corrupt. Just put it out there. Yeah, they're just corrupt. We're talking about Illinois, New York, and California. They're corrupt.
And yeah, so again, this is part of the founders' framework, and it's a little bit ironic because at the time of the founding, there were many more rural voters than urban voters, so it was actually designed to help the urban population have a say.
That's too much information for that.
Yeah, I know. But after starting in the 20th century, the demographics started to shift, but we have to maintain the Constitution. We have to have a direct amendment before we do anything, and not have this backdoor means of trying to get different states to just go along with pledging that their electors will vote along with the popular vote, and it doesn't make any sense, or else proportional voting. So if 1/3 of your state votes for some X and 2/3 vote for Y, all the electoral votes should go for Y, but unfortunately they want to change that and reduce that and water that down so that, 1/3 of the vote, the electoral college will vote for X and 2/3 for Y. And that's just a way of watering down the republic and replacing it with a direct democracy, which is mobocracy.
Is a mobocracy. That's exactly what it is.
And looking at my notes, I saw that Judicial Watch had found that over 900,000 illegal aliens had voted in 2018. And as I could remember, there was something like another case in Texas, where in one county in Texas, I think they found 58,000 illegal votes. So we're in trouble if this passes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the freedom movement is hanging on by a thread right now, as it seems. Of course, the silent majority is always silent, so we won't really know until the next election happens. But it seems like the news and the media, they're all dominated by the left, the politicians, even those who have R after their names are often just, watered down leftists. Oftentimes.
Mitt Romney comes to mind.
Yes.
He has an R in front of his name.
Yes. So it's an ongoing struggle, and we have to start at the grassroots with people like Jill Dickman and the others that Juanita mentioned. But we have to be concerned about what is going on in this country because if we're not, we're liable to be taken over and the country changed dramatically for the worse.
And as it's often said, all politics is local. And so this is very, very important to Washoe County. So I hope there is a groundswell of support tomorrow for these candidates.
And if you have an opinion on any of these bills, go to leg.state.nv.us and then go to the opinions or go look at the hearings. You can watch the hearings at any time, when they're on, and you can view them in real time, and that's exciting. And then you can, if you have a private number of your favorite state senator, you can just give them a little text and then send your information directly to them on their email. So that's how you can lobby from home, sitting in your pajamas. Just call them up and say, look at my email right now, and they can, you could turn them into looking like geniuses if you're real smart.
I love doing anything in my pajamas, so if it comes down to lobbying in my pajamas, I'm pretty happy about things. So we're coming up on a break. Do we want to get into the weeds of the legislation that's coming out of the Assembly today, or did you?
What do you think, Juanita? Do you have any other bills you want to discuss after the break?
The census stuff I would really like to talk about.
Okay.
All right, very good. We'll go into that. And do we have anything on... Oh, we do have something about the Ukraine, don't we?
Yes.
Some Ukrainian news. Stay with us.
Destination Midtown. Experience the difference. Reno's premier shopping extravaganza. Everything imaginable and more. Midtown matters.
Get back on your treatment plan or talk with your doctor to create a plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
Head to toe, everything's changed.
Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your co-host, Brendan Trainor, along with Leland Faegre, and our special guest in studio today, Juanita Cox. And Juanita, I know you wanted to speak about the Supreme Court case regarding whether or not there can be a question of whether someone who takes the census is a citizen. And this has been done before. In fact, it's been done many times before. However, the objection now, of course, is that it might be weaponized to use against illegal immigrants is what the proper phrase is, not undocumented, but illegal, because they are illegal. Even though I don't agree with many of the laws, they are illegal. And so the Supreme Court now has a conservative majority, and it is expected, although things can change, but it is expected that they will agree with the administration and allow the citizenship question to be on the census in 2020. And so what did you have in mind about it?
Well, again, I testified against AJR 6, and that was basically the same kind of a bill in Nevada that they are wanting to protect. Almost 20% of Nevadans are immigrants, they call them, only some of whom are citizens, and over 7% of the states, that's Nevada, total population are undocumented. They call them immigrants, but the proper language actually is illegal aliens.
They would call them future voters.
Yes. It says it's the highest proportion in the nation and more than twice the national average. And so at that hearing, the testimony for the case was that, this hasn't been done basically since 1950. Well, that was last time. In my testimony, I read the actual census information, and in 1820 was the first citizenship question on our census questions. And it happened repeatedly after that. And so I pointed this out to the dais, and they did not particularly like me correcting another, I believe, a state senator. But
shame on you.
He was misspoken.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're also poorly educated. I mean, they're just.
Oh yeah, they all claim to love the Constitution, and this goes
they
for
don't know
Republicans
a blessed thing
too.
about it. Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
So and the census is supposed to count all persons, not just citizens, but all persons, according to the Constitution, that are in the country. And the people that are elected are supposed to, represent not only the citizens, but also non-citizens in their district. And but the argument against this bill is that it would intimidate people due to the current climate against immigration, illegal immigration. And so people would not participate in the census, which you can be fined a whole $150 for, theoretically, if you don't fill out your census. But it seems to me to be rather innocuous. The government should have the right, as long as we respect all people within the jurisdiction, the government should have the right to know how many citizens there are, and that would certainly help with some of this voter fraud that's going on.
Sure,
because,
but it's all about the transfer payments, ultimately, at least for our enemies. They want to know how much money can be spread around to buy their vote eventually. That's really what it comes down to, and that can't happen. We cannot permit that to be the case.
Well, also, there's federal monies that come into the state on the number of citizens or non-citizens, residents of the state, and your representation is defined or determined on the number of actual citizens.
Yes, electors. Right. Uh-huh.
Right. So our representation is depending on those correct numbers. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, again, we have gerrymandering, and we are not going to be represented as we should. Nor the monies. There's only so much money in the pot, and it's distributed on the census basis. Yeah. So we should get a little more if our numbers are correct versus somebody's numbers that aren't, like the state of California specifically, like the LA area,
yeah.
or LA County.
And they buy their votes with that money. And that's what the problem of it is.
And, Elizabeth Warren she seems every proposal that she puts out, and she's putting them out by the every day.
Well, she needs she has
every
to.
day she's got a new policy that is going to cost trillions of dollars.
When you're on the caboose of the socialist train, you're going to have to pony up some legislation.
And so every proposal, she says that she would tax the wealthy. Well, it sounds like, although we don't have an actual bill yet, but it sounds like she's proposing a direct tax without apportionment on the wealthy, taxing their wealth directly. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, would be unconstitutional.
But they don't care about that.
No. And it's also a little bit like if you walk down the street and you find the $20 bill, and then you go spend it in 5 different places. You know, I mean, $20 here, $20 there, $20. How many programs can she support with this so-called tax on the wealthy?
Yeah, well, that's what she's trying to make a name for herself. You remember what Kissinger said, or is alleged to have said, is that the illegal we do immediately, the unconstitutional takes a little longer.
I love that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the approach she's taking here.
Again, for your audience, if they want to find a history of the Census Bureau's birthplace and citizenship questions, they could go to the Center for Immigration Studies, which is CIS.org. And you too can become an expert.
All right.
Well, if you aren't already by listening to our program here, did you want to go into the Ukrainian election quickly before the end of the show?
Sure, why not? If you weren't watching the Ukraine, the country that we have got totally involved in without any real reason except to poke the Russian bear, the Ukraine actually elected a comedian to the presidency.
Not only a comedian, we talked about this last week, but he's has a very high-profile program there apparently in the Ukraine where he plays a president.
Yes.
So how could he not be qualified to be the actual president?
It's like electing the actor of The West Wing into actual office.
It actually happened.
Yes, and I think it's a good thing, although it still remains to be seen. But he's making kind of the right noises now, and he pretty much has to, because the Ukraine is going to lose a lot of its power. It is totally dependent on Russia for its energy, and the Russians, because the Ukraine has been siphoned off the gas from the pipeline that goes through the Ukraine to other countries in Europe for years, and reneging on their bills to Russia. The Russians are partnered with Erdogan, the president of Turkey, to create the South Stream Turkish pipeline. And that'll go through either Greece or Serbia. And so the Ukraine is going to be cut off there. And they get a lot of power from the Russian nuclear power plants that were all built, as we saw in Chernobyl. They were built during the Soviet era, and they're reaching the end of their line. But
they were antiquated for a long time ago, and they could go the same way as Chernobyl.
Exactly. And Russia, in case you didn't notice it, because of the Green Party influence in our politics, we have pretty much abandoned our nuclear program. We still have a few plants running, but the idea that we're going to build more plants is not on the table. But the Russians supply now at least 70% of the nuclear power throughout the world. They build the plants and have a close monopoly. Only France is a competitor to them. So the Ukraine is going to be in a bad spot, and this...
That's why they needed the uranium, right?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
That was the whole...
Yep. So the new president of Ukraine has said that he is going to restart the Minsk agreements, and that is the agreements over the Donbass region, which has been in a state of virtual civil war or secession against the government of Kiev, Poroshenko. And if he does that, if he starts that, and ends that war and grants the Donbass some autonomy, then that could drastically change the conversation about Russia. And the only other thing we have to worry about is admitting that the Crimea has always been Russian, and it was actually a bloodless psychological operation in which Russia acceded to the will of the Crimeans, actually, and reintegrated them into the Soviet Union. Into Russia, I'm sorry.
I thought you were going to say the problem was Pompeo.
Yeah. So,
Mr. Pompacity.
It could be good news. The problem is twofold. He doesn't have any parliamentary support yet. He has to wait to see if he will get any in the next election. And he has a media oligarch behind him, and people are wondering if this media oligarch is going to be pulling the strings, or if he's actually a benign personality. So we'll wait and see. But that if the Ukraine comes to some agreement and rapprochement with Russia, that would end a lot of the problems we have today.
That would, and that's very exciting news. What I wanted to clarify from last week was that I erroneously described Julian Assange's detention in the prison that he's not in. It was actually Belmarsh.
Belmarsh, yeah.
For the record.
Okay.
So we'll see you next week.